Most hockey players think that being confident means feeling good. They think being nervous before a game means there's something wrong, or they think being anxious means you're not actually ready. So many players assume that the best players in the world are calm, confident, and feel perfect before the game. But what if I told you that's not actually what confidence is? Because the truth is, even the best players in the world still feel nervous before games. Michael Jordan, who most people would say is probably the most confident athlete of all time, still felt nervous before almost every single game. He literally said,
"The game started, I am not nervous. Before the game, I could be nervous. I'm pretty much nervous at every game. But once the ball goes up for the jump ball, I think all that nervousness just kind of goes away, and I revert back to things that I've practiced, things that seem to be very routine, and I'm very comfortable in that environment."
In this video, I'm going to show you why confidence is not how you feel. Confidence is actually how you respond in situations. Because when things are going wrong, when things are difficult, when things are uncertain, the confident people step up and do the right thing regardless of how they feel. And I'm going to show you a framework that I call the confidence hexaflex that is going to show you how to actually do this. So this isn't going to be some mindset fluff or some cool stuff that you say, oh, wow, that's interesting. You're going to actually have a clear framework, and you're going to be able to use this framework and actually start to take action on how to become a more completely confident player, not just somebody who tries to convince people, oh, I believe in myself, or somebody who's just trying to feel good before the game. So the first thing we want to understand before we get into the confidence hexaflex and we break that whole thing down is that everything in life is uncertain. Whether it's on the ice, whether it's off the ice, things are not 100% certain ever. So every move you make, every shot you take, every team that you decide to go on, every promise your coach makes, every single thing is not certain. And sometimes we think that in order to become confident, we have to believe 100% that something is going to happen. But that's not how life works, because life doesn't hand out guarantees, it hands out opportunities. And ironically, if life was 100% guaranteed, we would be super bored. We would hate it. Because think about it. Imagine there was no surprise, there was no challenges, there was no joy from overcoming difficult times. Life would be boring. Predictability might feel safe, but it's a prison dressed as a paradise. It's the unknown that makes life fun. It's uncertainty that gives action meaning. That's what makes winning games and victory so satisfying, because it wasn't guaranteed. If you were guaranteed to win a game, then what would be the point of playing the game? It's the chance you might lose that makes it exciting, that makes you want to pursue it. And the sooner you accept that uncertainty isn't the enemy, the faster you're going to unlock real, deep, consistent confidence. Because it's not the fake kind of confidence that needs to be in control all the time, but the deep kind that knows how to handle whatever comes its way. And one more thing before we move on, let's actually define confidence. So the dictionary definition of confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something, or firm trust. The state of feeling certain about the truth of something. And then the third definition for it that they have is a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. And yes, these are really good definitions overall, but the problem is they're very general. It's hard to kind of pinpoint, like, what does this actually mean? So at Identity Shift Hockey, we have a little bit of a different way to define confidence so that it becomes a bit more practical and something you can actually kind of hold on to a little bit more. So there's three core pillars of confidence that we see. So first of all, it's the belief that you're worthy of feeling confident, which comes from believing you're worthy of getting what you want. And fundamentally, it's feeling deserving of things. And this was the base confidence issue I had throughout my whole minor hockey career and even through junior, is that I kind of thought I didn't deserve to be successful because hard work was the key to success. And if I didn't work hard enough, well, then how would I know I deserve to be successful? It was kind of a weird paradox in my head, but it's something that I dealt with throughout my career, and I never really saw it. And it took me probably 5-ish years of really researching into confidence to understand how deep this went. And so you should ask yourself, do I have that type of confidence? And for a lot of guys, they don't. Now, the second one that we have is the certainty that outcomes will generally work out in one's favor. So this isn't about something 100% going your way. It's not 100% certainty. It's that things are generally working out for you. So even if you lose, even if you make a mistake, even if you have a bad period or shift or a game or whatever it is, a confident person knows that things are going to work out in the long run because you're going to learn from the mistake, because things are generally heading in a good direction. That's a huge distinction, because sometimes we think, well, if I do screw up, if I do make a mistake, if I do feel bad or whatever it is, well, then I'm screwed. And that's not the case. Real confidence is directionally knowing you're headed in a good place. And then the third third one is the willingness to adapt and endure in pursuit of one's goals. And if you think about it, this is such a valuable skill to be able to adapt and adjust when you need to, and being able to endure when things aren't working, when you're not on the right path, or you feel like, man, maybe this isn't going to work out. Being able to still push through. That's what confidence looks like on a longer scale. That's why we encourage everybody we work with to have what we call a long-term player mindset, seeing yourself as a long-term player in the game, not just somebody who's going to play for a few years, but what is it going to look like in 10 years from now, and really dialing into that long-term development plan. And so to develop these, you ultimately need mental flexibility. That's the way I like to think of confidence. And this connects to the concept from acceptance and commitment therapy of, they call it basically a healthy mind is a flexible mind. So having mental flexibility is very similar to having physical flexibility. A baby has a very rigid mind in the sense of, you take away their toy and they freak out and they can't handle it emotionally and it just breaks them. There's a lot of adults out there that are the same way, right? If somebody takes your toy or somebody does something to you or whatever, there's like this breaking point and you're not able to mentally adjust and adapt. When a game doesn't work out in the way that you wanted it to, when you make a mistake, the other team scores a goal, like you break. That's a lack of flexibility. But if you look at the best athletes in the world, the best players, the best goalies, the best athletes in every sport, not just hockey, their ability to bounce back quickly, that's what really mental resilience is. Like when things don't go your way and you do feel the pain, do you bounce back right away or do you not, right? And so there's a distinction you want to kind of make here, which is, do I have mental toughness and do I also have mental resilience? So mental toughness is basically the ability to continue and persist and take action and not basically deviate from what the path is. So your behavior doesn't change regardless of difficulty. But then you also have this other side of the equation, which is mental resilience. This is the ability to, when you do get pulled off track, do you stay on track after? Like, do you come back right away, or do I just fizzle out and deviate for a really long time? So somebody who's mentally tough is going to say, okay, somebody scores a goal and nothing changes. There's not even an emotional shift. You're just like, I'm good, everything's fine. And you actually feel that on a deep subconscious level. Yeah, like you are going to feel emotions a lot of the time. Not everybody can just be so tough that they don't even feel it. But then resilience is this ability to, if I do feel something, so somebody, scores a goal against your line, or if you're a goalie, they score on you. And then it's, can I reset quickly? How quickly do I bounce back? Is it within 5 seconds? Is it 50 seconds? Is it 5 minutes? Is it, the whole game, right? Like that's the key, is can you come back right away back to baseline? And this is staying on baseline. This is how quickly you can come back to baseline. And both of those require mental flexibility to some extent. Now you can think of toughness a little bit as like being able to stay like strong. It's like like an ISO hold in the gym, but this is really the ability to move through range, be able to get into uncomfortable places and then come right back. Both are super key, and I hope you see a distinction. And so now with that, it's very important to realize that this is not about emotion, right? Like both of these things rely on, okay, like this is about being able to push through and not deviate. This is, if I do fall off, I can come back. But there's actually studies that have come out that they looked at NHL players and they did pre-game basically readings, and they basically said like, okay, how do you feel going into a game? How confident do you feel? Basically, what's your emotional state going in? And what they found was there's not really any correlation between how a player felt. This is again NHL players, so this might be different for lower level or different level players. There was no difference between how they felt and how they performed. There was no correlation there. And so it's really interesting to realize, hey, like you can feel whatever you want before the game going into it, but how do you actually perform? That's different. That's why confidence to me is not about, it's just a feeling. It's what do you do? When you do feel nervousness, when you do feel off, do you continue to act the way you want? Do you perform? And I think most NHL players have a certain level of mental toughness and resilience because they're able to perform at that level. Like they probably wouldn't get there if they don't have a certain level of it. And then when you get there, then it's a matter of maintaining it. It's a lot of maintenance work that they do in the NHL for guys. And it's about continuing to build that mental tool set, add in more advanced techniques. But for the guys that aren't there yet, you got to build the mental tool set of an NHLer essentially, or try to even have a better one so that you can get the most out of your physical ability. And so with that in mind, let's actually transition into developing confidence. Let's actually go through the confidence hexaflex. Let's break it down. I'll even probably include this sheet below so you guys can download it if you want to print it off and use it as kind of a structure and a reminder. So let's break it down. So basically there's kind of 3 core sections in this. And again, this is from acceptance and commitment therapy. I did not really invent this model. I just kind of adapted it to hockey a little bit. But basically the first third is openness. So it's being able to be open to what's happening. Then the middle area is where we talk about the idea of basically presence. So this is being aware of what's going on, being very present and in the moment essentially. And then you have engaged. So this is like acting in the moment. And so when you connect these kind of three pieces together, you get this beautiful kind of flow of being open, being aware, and then engaged in acting in that moment. And that's how you can really judge a mind that is healthy, that is confident, is, are you able to act? Are you able to accept what's happening and act in that moment? Or are you like the little baby or toddler who's like, I can't take it, things aren't the way I want, and then you break. You cannot have that if you want to be a successful athlete, yet many athletes break in those moments. So that's why you need to have some level of mental skill, which maybe you figure out on your own, or you actually develop it intentionally, right? And so just like stick handling, you can develop stick handling skills accidentally or just through like trial and error and messing around in the driveway, or you can go and learn from somebody. Both can work. It's really just a question of, hey, like, what's the highest chance of learning the skill? It's probably going to be from having a system and actually developing it, right? That's just what you're going to realize when you really kind of think it out. Like, of course, if I learn a system and I learn a set of skills from someone who's done it hundreds of times or thousands of times, it's probably going to help. That's me plugging our programs. There are free trainings below. You can also look and see what it looks like to actually work with us and go through our program. So feel free to check that stuff out. But let's get into the specifics of the Hexaflex. So first you have acceptance. So acceptance is embracing the challenge. So this is not some like airy-fairy concept. This is, you must accept what is happening. Anything you do in your mind to resist what is occurring is your ego trying to fight what's happening in the moment. And it's funny because we don't always realize this, but we fight a lot of what's happening. Like, this is what our brain is always kind of screwing up, is that the reality is, if you're in a situation, you're in the situation. You just are. You can't just be so angry or so sad or whatever that you just pop out of the situation. And sometimes we think it's that way, and our ego wants to think it's that way. If I think a certain way, if I feel a certain way, I can just like make this thing happen. Well, the reality is, it's the actions you take that make it happen. Now, those actions can be driven by happiness or joy or sadness, anger, or many different things. There can be different fuel that you use, and some people will argue you should use the negative fuel, the positive fuel. I'm one for saying, hey, use what you got. Like, if you have sadness or frustration, use it to drive action. If you have happiness and joy, use it to drive action. But you just have to remember, over time, if you use the negative fuel for a long time, you're probably going to feel pretty shitty in the long run. So just being conscious of those two things, of what fuel you use. But coming back to the concept of acceptance, you got to accept what's happening in order to then act. So you embrace it. You acknowledge this difficulty. You acknowledge what's happening. The other team scored. You made a mistake. You got hit and you're injured and you got to play through the injury. You listen to the best NHLers. Matthew Tkachuk just played with a completely torn adductor, which is a groin muscle, which happened to me when I was playing. And he played like most of the playoffs with it. Like, insane. He should have gotten surgery, but he just played. That's insane. And like, a huge part of that is acceptance. You accept what is happening and then you act through it, right? But you have acceptance. The next thing is you have diffusion. This is being able to separate from your thoughts. It's not just negative thoughts. It's being able to basically accept any thoughts and dissipate or diffuse from them. So somebody who is fused to their thoughts or emotions is somebody who gets pulled in that direction. You get kind of like drug towards it, right? And what the problem with this is that when you get fused to your thoughts, this is like being very like egotistical. This is when you're trying to overthink the game. So if you're like, oh, don't screw up, don't make this play, don't do that. Okay, I got to make this play. Okay, do this, do that. That's you basically being fused to your thinking. And so what you want to be able to do is learn to let thoughts and let emotions drift by. And so you can actually go on YouTube after this video and you can just search diffusion exercises or meditations, and you can practice letting the thoughts and emotions drift by like leaves. This is one of the concepts that we teach our guys in our programs. Again, sounds airy-fairy, magical, spiritual stuff, but it's practical, because when you get into an important moment, you'll see clips of guys like LeBron, has been arguably the best basketball player for the past 30 years, 20 years, whatever it's been. And he literally is just doing breathing meditation. He closes his eyes and he's just using meditation. But what he's doing is he's basically bringing his attention to the breath. He may be doing some thinking. He may be doing some specific anchoring technique. I'm not 100% sure. But the key is that you have to accept, then you diffuse, which disconnect from the thoughts, let go of that egoic voice. It's a skill you got to develop, and that allows you to be open to the moment. Then being aware of the moment is being able to be present. So in that moment, be very present to what's happening. We hear this all the time. Everybody says, be in the now. What does it actually mean? What does it actually look like? It's you paying attention with your senses to what is happening in this exact moment. But you can't really do that if you're not open. You haven't done the first two steps. But then when you have done the first two steps, now you can be present. You can bring your attention into what's actually happening, and then you can focus on the most important things. And this is where IQ only works if your brain is not blocked by all this other stuff. So if you can get the other stuff out of the way, now you can make effective decisions. You can focus on the right part of the play. play. You can scan the ice in the right way. Then you see yourself as context. This is a very important concept because what seeing yourself as context really means is basically mean you're being the observer instead of the critic. Again, this is you not being caught up in your egoic voice in your head. This is you being focused on being the watcher of the moment. This connects back to the Inner Game of Tennis. Unbelievable mental game book. You should read it if you haven't. But if you haven't read the book, there's basically two core selves we have in our brain. So we have self 1 and self 2. Self 1 you can think of as the thinker or the coach. And that's the one that's always giving you instruction. That's the one that's overthinking. That's the one we think of as like the ego. And then we have self 2. That's the performer. That's like the one that actually goes out and plays. That's really our subconscious instincts, or as I like to call them, your subconscious software. And so what's really interesting is that many players think that self 1 is the key to performing on the ice, but what you really need to do is learn how to quiet self 1 and see yourself not as the voice in your head, but as the observer, and being able to have that voice kind of sit back and trust self 2, the performer or the software, to go out and carry out the action. And the ability to do this is what makes you being able to be aware of what's going on. Because when that voice quiets and you stop identifying as the thinker, what it allows you to do is zoom into what's happening and focus on the right stuff. So that's the key with this second section. Now, when we move into the third section, this is where we get engaged into the moment. This is where we're actually starting to take action. So the key with action is it needs to be driven by identity. So identity is clearly knowing who you are, what traits you want to have, what your values are as a player. And so the key with this is not just saying these very general, silly ones like, oh, I'm a hard worker, I want it more than everybody. Those can be good foundational pieces, but it's also having other clear values and traits of who you want to be. What is your identity? This is where the alter ego starts to come in, and we teach players how to actually maneuver this and create their on-ice identity or their alter ego that steps in and plays for them. That's like a superhero version of them. And so that's where that piece comes in. And then you're just taking the action. But the key is taking action that's aligned with that identity. And so this helps us to understand how to actually make improvements in our game and be better self-coaches or self-leaders, is by developing the skill of not just saying, ooh, I want to go play good out there. I want to go have a good game. Instead, it's being able to say, no, I know what a good game looks like for me, defining that clearly in terms of actions you're going to take, what it's going to look like, and then going out, taking the action in alignment with that, then assessing and coming back, and then deciding what you're going to do next. And so if you look at all 6 of these parts of the confidence hexaflex, this is what's going to allow you to be mentally tough, be mentally resilient, have a flexible mind, be able to handle different situations, push through difficulty. It's what's going to make you actually confident. If you want to be a truly confident player, you can't just hope you show up confident. You can't rely on just feeling good. You need to build a mental system that's going to wire your mental software to believe what you need to believe and be who you need to be. You don't just show up to a game and say, okay, now I'm going to have all of the physical hardware I need. I'm going to have the strength, the speed, the power. You know that those things only come through preparing yourself, right? Same with the skills. You're not just going to have skills because you want them. They're going to be because you actually worked on them. The hands, the shooting, the skating, the hitting, the battling, all those things need to be worked on. So the same way with the mental skills. If you want to be confident, confidence is a skill that you can develop. And yes, you need to be good enough. You need to be competent in the game. You need to have the tools and the physical abilities. That's why we always talk about that. Anybody we work with, we're not just saying you can believe your way to the NHL, but if you have the tool set, you have the abilities to be playing better than you are right now, then something within this hexaflex is probably not working as well as you want it to. So if you need help with that, just go down below. You can check out the links. There's a free training that you can use to start building your confidence. There's also a higher level breakdown of how we actually help players and what our systems really look like. So you can check that out. You can apply. We'll be honest with you and tell you if it's even a good fit to potentially work together. We're not going to try to just pitch you or whatever. And we just want to help. So if you enjoyed this, I hope it did make a difference for you. Comment below anything you want me to talk about or go deeper with. And I hope you have an awesome day. I really appreciate you, consuming the content, and I hope it's making a difference in your game. So talk to you soon.